If you recently lost your job and your health coverage due to the COVID-19 pandemic and you think you may be eligible for Medicare, you probably have more questions than answers right now. Statewide Insurers Group, All Things Medicare, can help you with that. We can provide the guidance and the answers that you need to get the benefits you may be eligible for. Don't let this time of uncertainty jeopardize your eligibility for your Medicare benefits. Remember, relationships matter. Call Statewide Insurers Group today for the answers that you need now. 316-8166.
Being prepared and trained is the best way to keep your family safe. The best way to be prepared is to learn from those who've spent a lifetime protecting us. Barnes Safety and Consulting LLC offers concealed carry classes with instructors who are law enforcement officers active and retired with more than 100 years of law enforcement experience. Monthly classes are taught year-round with private classes and special group rates available. Classes are $75 and held in the Bailey area. Call or text 1-800-653-0643. Get your concealed carry permit and avoid becoming a victim.
And welcome to the K-Files. And remember, everybody, that this particular show is designed for people to call in for us to get tips on cases that are outstanding, murders that are outstanding, unsolved murders. Please look at the number, and during the show or at any time, call. You can even call in here if you want, if you have a question, if you don't particularly have to have a tip, but if you have a question about anything that you want to ask us, please do so. I was told to please throw that out there, so I did. But please call at any time, 406-6736. That is a completely anonymous number. That's very important. We want to thank our sponsors, Statewide Insurers Group, and of course Barnes Safety, who is sitting right over here, J.P. Barnes. And today our special guest is Jeff Sherrod. This is the Nash County Sheriff's Office's week to come on the show, the first week in the month. So we're so glad to have you on.
Thank you, ma'am. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, bud.
We're going to start out, I believe you said, by talking about one of the cases that we've been talking about several times, and Jeff Sherrod, Lieutenant Sherrod, has talked about so many times, Randy Colgrove.
Yep, we responded to some friends of Randy's finding him laying in a driveway back on October the 21st, 2017. We got there, investigation began. We learned during the course of our investigation that it appeared that there was a home invasion at Randy's house, which was probably a 2/10 of a mile up a path from where he was located. When we got there, we could tell there was a struggle inside the house. It appeared to us that Randy got away from that struggle, ran down the path, and got into another struggle. A short
So
way
they
from
chased him out.
Chased him down, and he got away from that struggle, and then he ran to his final resting place where they shot him, and he took 2 gunshot wounds.
Wow. Goodness gracious. Okay, are we making any movement with this?
We in constant communication with the DA's office on this case. We've sent a lot of stuff to the lab. We're still waiting on some stuff to come back. We just sent some stuff not too long ago to the lab, just to have it, some stuff that we didn't send the first time, because you're only allowed to send a certain amount of stuff at certain times. You can send all you want, but it's just a certain amount at certain times.
Right.
And so we sent some more stuff just to see if we could get lucky, basically, to see if anything
Right.
comes back.
Well, JP mentioned that he remembered him because he was a pretty well-known barber.
He was. JP and I were talking off camera. He used to cut JP's hair, and then if you remember earlier, when we talked about this case before, he used to work for the barber that I go to. So I've known
Wow.
Randy for a while.
He was a pretty popular guy then. Okay, well, thank you for the update on that. We always want to keep the public updated, and if you know anything on the Randy Colgrave case, please call the anonymous number, or you can call the Nash County Sheriff's Office.
Right.
So, okay, so you wanted to talk about some other things this morning.
The sheriff's office is constantly working these cold cases. We have the one with Jaleel Evans. That was the young man from Greensboro that we found in a rural area up in Castalia. That case got assigned to Detective Josh Trull like 6 months ago, and he's been making a lot of headway in that case. So we're waiting to see, again, waiting for some stuff to come back from the lab with that, and hopefully we may get lucky in that. Letitia McNair case with a missing girl that we found in Nash County, the cold case that the family called and asked us to reopen. We've got the Department of Insurance in with that, helping us with that case. They're looking at some another angle for us. So, we're busy. We're staying busy right now.
Very good. Now, y'all don't have a lot of cases, though.
We don't have
total, how many do you have?
We have 2 unsolved homicides, and then Letitia McNair's a unsolved homicide that we've reopened.
Talk a little bit about that, because we started talking about that case because a viewer called us. She said, I knew this girl, and I'm very interested in knowing if y'all are doing anything with it. So I called the Sheriff's Department, and y'all are working on it.
We are. After you called, the family actually called us as well and asked us if we would reopen it. Just for the viewers that are tuning in, she went missing on Hargrove Street in Rocky Mount in 2001. 6 months later, her skull was found on a private cemetery on Browntown Road outside of Red Oak. At that time, it went from a missing person case to a homicide, and the Sheriff's Office took it over, and Rocky Mount assisted with it because she was originally missing from Rocky Mount. And so back then they interviewed tons of people. Rocky Mount helped them, and unfortunately all the leads were dead ends. And then 7 years later, some guys riding four-wheelers stumbled across the rest of the body in a wooded area right down the road from where the skull was originally
Yeah, I
found.
was going to say that was right down the road from the cemetery, correct?
It was.
Wow, sad.
It is very sad. And, we talked about this the last time. Letitia was, from what everybody that I've read and everybody that I've talked to since I got involved in the case, said that she was just a sweet, innocent little girl. We talked about she had special needs.
Special needs, right.
And we had talked about it earlier. People, normally in society, people with special needs don't tend to bother people. But it's tragic that this little girl, well, she wasn't little, but it's tragic she went through this, and the sad part of it is that she lost her life, but the family had to live through this trauma twice. They had to live through it in 2001 when her skull was found, and then 7 years later, they have to live through it again when the rest of her body's found.
So let's talk about some of these shootings that are going on, golly, around the state at the schools and.
And JP knows what I'm about to say is that when you have a school shooting, law enforcement just gets terrified. And we got our SROs, on high alert. But when you have 2 in the same week, then it's very rarely that you hear one around here. But yesterday they had one in Winston-Salem where a student was shot and killed, and then 3 days prior to that, a kid was shot and wounded up in New Hanover County. So it's tough times right now, and when parents drop their kids off at school, they expect them to be safe.
That's exactly right. And you expect to be able to see them when they get off the school bus, or you expect to be able to pick them up from school that afternoon without harm.
I agree.
So, it's unfortunate, and our prayers do go out to the families and the students at the school and the staff and everybody, because it just affects everybody when something like this happens. So,
Very true.
we're so sorry. So, do we have? So, you're talking about SROs.
Mm-hmm.
How many do we have? I mean, does all the middle schools, high schools?
Middle school and high schools for the county.
No elementary schools,
Not
right?
yet.
From what I understand.
Not yet, not in Nash County. That's something that the sheriff is looking into.
Okay.
He actually wants a school resource officer in every school in Nash County.
Preston County Commissioners.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
oh, yeah,
exactly
but,
right.
yeah, I mean, and you go to them with the concerns.
That's
You go to them and say, look, very rarely do you hear of a school shooting in North Carolina, and you've had 2 in 3 days.
I was going to say, look at this. Look what's happening. I mean, I would think we do need one in every
School.
every school.
Every school.
And
I agree, JP. I agree.
And in the last interview the sheriff did with Lindell on the show, I mean, you have to catch those kids early.
That's right.
You can't wait and catch them when they're freshmen and juniors and seniors and stuff like that, because their mind's already made up. You have to make an impression on those kids when they're young.
Before they get in a gang,
Exactly.
or before they do anything.
Let them know that there's a way out.
Yes.
And if you get them in the elementary schools, and our guys do a great job in our middle schools. I mean, they know every parent, they know every kid, but that's when you make the impressions.
Mm-hmm.
You can't wait until they're seniors to think you're going to make an impression on them.
That's right.
Exactly. Well, so great information. Thank you again for coming and sharing those cases with us. And one of these days, he's going to come and say, I have an announcement to make. So I feel like one of those is coming. So anyway, thank you for everything y'all do at the Nash County Sheriff's Office. Just a great job done by y'all, I'll tell you. We are so blessed to have the law enforcement that we have in our area. So anyway, we'll be right back with more on the K-Files right after this. Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
If you recently lost your job and your health coverage due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and you think you may be eligible for Medicare, you probably have more questions than answers right now. Statewide Insurers Group, All Things Medicare, can help you with that. We can provide the guidance and the answers that you need to get the benefits you may be eligible for. Don't let this time of uncertainty jeopardize your eligibility for your Medicare benefits. Remember, relationships matter. Call Statewide Insurers Group today for the answers that you need now. 316-8166.
Being prepared and trained is the best way to keep your family safe. The best way to be prepared is to learn from those who've spent a lifetime protecting us. Barnes Safety and Consulting LLC offers concealed carry classes with instructors who are law enforcement officers active and retired with more than 100 years of law enforcement experience. Monthly classes are taught year-round with private classes and special group rates available. Classes are $75 and held in the Bailey area. Call or text 1-800-653-0643. Get your concealed carry permit and avoid becoming a victim.
And welcome back. And we still have Jeff with us. I wanted to ask him about a case that's coming up for trial. It happened, how many years ago?
2019.
2000. I thought it was about 2 years ago. Rex Lynn Keel. Wasn't that his name? Rex
Yes, ma'am.
Lynn Keel. talk about that. It's coming up, I believe, finally. It's, you know, because of COVID, you know, the courts put some of the cases off, so.
We're in constant communication with the DA's office where we're doing court preparations. It's scheduled for October the 4th in Pitt County,
It's coming up,
less than a month.
and they did change the venue to
Change
Pitt
the venue to
County.
Pitt County.
Now, how does that work? So, will one of our judges go there? Do we already know who the judge is going to be
Yes.
yet? Oh,
Judge,
you do?
Judge Quentin Summers going to be the judge.
So he will go to Pitt County to preside
Right.
over that case?
They,
Okay.
we just used their courthouse and their juries.
Okay.
We had to provide the bailiffs. I think Pitt County's gonna give us a couple, but we just used their courthouse and their jurors, and Judge Sumner will see over the trial, and the DA's office in Nash County will be prosecuting it.
Tell people, Jeff, why they change venues.
It was just a request from the defense, just saying that it was just such a high publicity trial or case. It made national news, and that they just wanted to move it out of Nash County.
They did the very same thing to Mark Bowling, you know, the Mark Bowling trial, they moved it to Greenville as well.
And if you remember back when Jody Plew, they got a Halifax County
Yes.
jury.
Yeah,
They
they
held
sure
it. They
did.
held a trial in Nash County, but
Yes.
we had Halifax County jurors.
Right. And they're allowed to do that, and it's normally, if I'm correct, it's normally the defense
Yeah,
that
defense.
does request that.
That's true.
So it will be in Pitt County then on October 4th is when it will begin. So y'all are prepping for that right now.
Yep.
And there is quite a bit of prep work that
Oh, yeah.
goes in because, you know, you made the arrest. I mean, we know the defense is preparing and the DA's preparing, but the Sheriff's Department has to prepare too.
Oh, yeah.
Because you were the arresting
We,
agency.
We had a ton of people when that case happened involved. So there'd be a lot of testimony from our detectives, our evidence people, of course the medical examiners, the doctors that did the autopsy, and just things of that nature. So I'm expecting at least 1 to 2 week trial.
Okay, all right. Well, it'll be interesting, a very interesting trial. I think a lot of people were interested in the case. I mean, it went all the way to y'all arrested him in
Tucson, Arizona.
way out west. In
Tucson, Arizona.
Tucson, Arizona. So, you know, you went way out west for that one. So it lasted a while, and so that will be coming up. We will be talking about it on here, not about the trial. We don't want to do anything to, you know, mess the trial up at all, tamper with anything, but we will be bringing you some background on him and his life, and because we always wonder, you know, what made somebody, if he did it, and it's still alleged, what made somebody do something like that? I mean, that's always in our mind, you know,
Yeah.
Why would they do that? And especially if you knew them, or knew him. A lot of people have, you know, told me, I went to school with him. I would have never thought he was so quiet. Well, you better watch the quiet ones. But anyway, that's why I'm loud. But anyway, yeah, appreciate that information, and of course, you'll have updates
Right.
on that trial as it finishes up. Don't want to talk probably in the middle of it, but probably at the end, we will have you back and talk about it, and maybe talk about it a little bit before it goes to trial again. So thank you so much for being with us this morning. Anything else before we close?
Just, you know, it's been a busy week. Rocky Mount had a homicide this weekend, well, last weekend, and those guys did a great job. They had somebody in custody a couple days later. And of course, you know,
That's
the
great.
shooting yesterday in Wilson, Tuesday night in Wilson, where 2 people were killed and 2 injured, and Wilson Sheriff's Office and I think Wayne County Sheriff's Office helped them located the guy yesterday and made an arrest in that. So
Good job.
great job to those guys. That's, you know, that's the kind that you want from law enforcement when you can get somebody in custody in a couple of days.
Yes, and as the public, we like to hear that somebody's in custody that has done something like this. So, great job, law enforcement, again. So this is why we thank law enforcement folks so often. And if you see a law enforcement officer, please thank them, because they go out when everybody else is asleep. Whenever it's happening, you know, they're out there. So anyway, thank y'all for everything you do.
Yes, ma'am.
Lieutenant Sherrod, thank you for being with us.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll be right back right after this.
If you recently lost your job and your health coverage due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and you think you may be eligible for Medicare, you probably have more questions than answers right now. Statewide Insurers Group, All Things Medicare, can help you with that. We can provide the guidance and the answers that you need to get the benefits you may be eligible for. Don't let this time of uncertainty jeopardize your eligibility for your Medicare benefits. Remember, relationships matter. Call Statewide Insurers Group today for the answers that you need now. 316-8166.
Being prepared and trained is the best way to keep your family safe. The best way to be prepared is to learn from those who've spent a lifetime protecting us. Barnes Safety and Consulting LLC offers concealed carry classes with instructors who are law enforcement officers active and retired with more than 100 years of law enforcement experience. Monthly classes are taught year-round with private classes and special group rates available. Classes are $75 and held in the Bailey area. Call or text 1-800-653-0643. Get your concealed carry permit and avoid becoming a victim.
And welcome back. And again, we want to thank our wonderful sponsors, Barnes Safety and Consulting. Don't forget to to call JP and give us some information on how people can contact you if they want to sign up for concealed carry.
You can call or text me at 919-369-0311, and we'll respond back, call, text 24/7.
Exactly. And don't forget, folks, there is up to a $15,000 reward if you call and you give us a tip. It will be anonymous, and it will be graded as to how much by law enforcement. We do not, and we don't get any of this information. I will not know. If you call, I will not know anything. Nobody knows. Just call in anonymously. But as I said, it's up to $15,000 that you could collect. Law enforcement decides on how valuable that tip. Every tip is valuable, but they will decide how valuable the tip was, and we do pay out fast. I'll tell you, because I write the checks. So they go out between 24 and 48 hours, but every one I've done has gone out very fast. So, and we have paid out. I will have to say we have paid out, folks. So it does work. JP, I would like to talk about Elizabeth Jane Smallwood this morning. I remember this case when Lyndall talked about it, and I believe the Rocky Mount Police Department, when they came, talked about it one time as well. It is in the city limits of Rocky Mount, and it happened in 2008. Elizabeth Jane Smallwood's remains were found along Milton Drive in Rocky Mount in February of 2009. You all know where Milton Drive is. It's right down there where Bob Milton's Barbecue used to be. It runs beside the hot dog stand, right down there. Police state that she could have been exposed to the elements for as much as a year before she was found. She did not stay in contact with family, so it is unclear when she went missing. The medical examiner stated, given the conditions in which she was found, Smallwood's death was highly suspicious for homicidal violence. The official cause of her death remains undetermined. Her death has been rumored to be part of the murders that Antoine Pittman committed around that same time frame. However, Pittman has not been charged. All right, Antoine Pittman is the one that is in custody, in jail. He is in prison, not jail, he's in prison. Right now, we went to that trial and we covered the case, and they found him guilty even though they almost know that he killed some of the other missing women, so to speak. They think she may have been one of them, which she was
She
found
meets
way
the
over
profile.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does, doesn't she? So anyway, they could only pin one of those on him, but he did get, life without parole, so he is in there. But you still want to know, because as Lyndall said, suppose he's not the one that did this. I mean, that's always a possibility.
It is.
Then you could have somebody else, and somebody else is lurking out there, so you don't know. But they think and highly suspect that this case may be, that case went national fast. I mean, I can remember getting phone calls asking me from the different news agencies from all over the place, did we have footage because we were local? Did we have footage? I'm thinking, are you kidding me? We do share our footage, but it's extenuating circumstances that we would do that, because I cannot call WRAL and ask them for footage. I mean, they're going to say, really? Are you really calling me and asking me that? Because it's usually exclusive. But we have shared information before that was on America's Most Wanted and stuff like that. So in the Mark Bowling trial, we did that. But we were willing to share a little bit of that. But anyway, so this case went very high profile, is the point, really fast. Seven Bridges Road.
That's what I was sitting here trying to think of that. Seven
Yeah,
Bridges. Okay.
Seven Bridges Road. And here she is, way over here on Milton Drive. So you wonder, is it or is it not? So anyway, another interesting case. Ryan Lee, we haven't talked about this one too much, so I'll bring this one up. Around 11:30 p.m., the Rocky Mount Police Department was dispatched to a person that was shot on Clark Street in Rocky Mount. Upon arrival, they found Ryan Lee, 16, who had succumbed to his injuries. After investigating, it appeared that Lee was shot on Branch Street and ran 2 blocks to his home where he collapsed. I remember that shooting. I remember when this happened way back. It was in 2008, but I remember us covering that story as well.
Clark Street. I can't place Clark Street.
Clark Street is on the Edgecombe side of town, kind of Arlington Street. I don't know if you know where Arlington Street is.
I do.
That goes, Arlington Street runs kind of on the outskirts of downtown. But if you go all the way out of town, kind of, away from downtown, down Arlington Street, then 2 blocks over, there's Pender, there's Branch, and then there's Clark. There's 4 streets right in there. So it's in Edgecombe County. And it's, kind of an area where, they've investigated a lot of drugs in that area, is what they were saying, and things like that. So I don't know if it was drug related or what, but it's sad. 16 years old. I mean, just think, he had his whole life in front of him. And that's one of them cases that maybe if in elementary school, if it was drugs in elementary school, maybe he could have been saved. And, maybe, if he was in a gang, who knows? But anyway, that's another one of the cases that's in the book. And I want to show our book. Here's our book, Teen Cold Case. All these cases that we are reading, are in this book, and we're going to put out a book 2 with some more cases. We couldn't put them all in this book, but it's got a lot of cases in here. If you know anybody on the board, if you want to call me, I'll be glad to give you one. If you want to come down here and get it, we'll be glad to give you one. It's an interesting read.
It is.
It really is an interesting read with the various cases.
The people who I've shared it with, they absolutely love it. They
Yeah.
claim they cannot put it down.
Yeah,
You know?
my husband did that. He started glancing through it, he said, let me see it. And he's a reader anyway. And I just couldn't get his attention for a while. He kept reading it until he got through it. He didn't stop. So, yeah, very interesting read. Stephen Frederick McCray, 1-3-20. Let's talk about that case. Stephen Frederick McCray is 63 years old and is also known as Steve. I'm going to let you read this one. I'll let you read this. You want to read this one or you got your glasses?
I brought
Okay,
my
you
glasses
read
last
glasses.
week. I forgot them today.
All right, he is a white male with brown gray hair and blue eyes, approximately 5'6" and weighs 145 pounds. He has a staggering walk and also suffers from dementia. These cases are always, bad because you don't know where they went, they got lost, somebody got them, you don't know. We've talked about several cases like this. He has a staggering walk and also suffers from dementia. He was last seen wearing a white gray t-shirt, blue jeans, white shoes with tape on them, a dark colored coat, and a hat. He does frequent the areas of Princeville, Tarboro, and South Rocky Mount. He was last seen on January 3rd, 2020. This is a very recent case, very recent. Around 4 p.m. at 767 Robertson School Road in Tarboro. If anybody in the Tarboro area knows anything. Earlier in the day, on January 3rd, 2020, a friend went by to check on Mr. McCray and was going to take him to pay some bills, but he decided not to go. Later that day, he contacted his mother and told her he was not feeling well. That is the last time anyone had seen him or heard from him. His son reported him missing a few days later. There are suspicious circumstances around his disappearance. Overnight on January 3rd to the morning of January 4th, it was 59 degrees and rainy. With rain sometimes heavy and with gusty winds, it just doesn't make sense for someone to walk away willingly from their home with nothing but the shirt on their back, clothes on their back, in January and in the rain. They said it was pouring down rain, so why would he go out? What is even more suspicious is Stephen McCray's debit card had been used multiple times. Here we go with another debit card situation. Remember the daughter of the guy in Tarboro that used the credit card after he died, and I think authorities know she did it, but they can't pin her exactly. But anyway, what is even more suspicious is Stephen McCray's debit card had been used multiple times after he was reported missing. On January 28th, just 25 days after his disappearance, one of his daughters, Brittany Nancy Lee McCray of 174 Otis Lane in Rocky Mount, was charged with identity theft. We talked about this case last week. Identity theft, financial card theft, and 2 counts of obtaining property by false pretense after she used his card to withdraw funds from his account just days after he was reported missing. There again, can't pin the daughter evidently. Twice she withdrew $500 from his card from an ATM, placed in Edgecombe County Jail, and given a $50,000 bond that was later reduced to $10,000. Her case is under grand jury review at the end of December. Some undisclosed items from his residence were also missing. Multiple friends and acquaintances of Brittany have stated that it has been hard to keep up with her lies. She has been questioned about using her father's debit card, and she has told multiple stories on her reasoning. One friend stated she just used his money like he is never coming back, and to me that is suspicious. Brittany hasn't seemed to worry about their father's disappearance. And that's another thing, not even, and I remember them saying, law enforcement saying, she's very nonchalant about it, not concerned at all.
Because
That her
subconsciously
father's-
she might know he ain't coming back.
She knows
I'm
he's
just
not coming
speculating.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so probably. However, Brittany has pretty much remained silent. Fighting Crime reached out to Brittany and she refuses to talk or tell her side of the story. It would be reasonable to think that if you're being accused of doing something and you didn't do it, that you would be calling every paper, every outlet, and telling your side of the story to clear your name. One thing is for certain, there is more to this story, as things are not adding up and it is slowly being revealed. I think that's a case that they will solve, JP, don't you?
I do.
I think they're going to eventually, especially, now what does it mean if it's under grand jury review?
Grand jury review is where they're kind of trying to decide how to proceed. You know,
Okay.
usually the sheriff can bring charges, the district attorney can bring charges,
Right.
or the grand jury can bring charges.
Yes.
So it sounds like to me they've put it into the hands of the grand jury to decide. I mean,
Okay.
that's kind of what I'm reading it as.
And that's going to be done in December, it says. So we might have some news on this case coming up in a couple of months, then, 2 or 3 months. So, and think about it, folks. After you've heard about these cases so many times in detail, and you're sitting there trying to do your own thinking, oh, you know, people tell me this all the time. I'm trying to think of what I think happened, you know, well, just think, when it gets solved, you'll say, I know that case. I heard it on the K-Files, and I've been trying to figure that case out, or I had that case figured out. I knew that. You know, it's...
My
that's what
sister
people
always
are thinking.
says, my sister Nancy always says, I should have been an investigator. JP, I should have been an investigator. Because now she loves stuff like this. She loves this book. She
Yeah.
loves watching these crime shows. And she's usually point on. I mean,
Yeah.
And a lot of us do.
If you watched a lot of those crime shows, you can find, you know, you can kind of figure out a lot of things. But yeah, I'm that way. I'm intrigued by this kind of thing, and like to draw my own conclusions and see if I'm right down the road. So to speak, a lot of people have done that. So anyway, we'll have some stories next week. Let's see, next week we will have, let me think, next week I believe is Edgecombe County. So I think we'll have Sergeant Tender next week with us to talk about some of their cases. And as a matter of fact, we will ask Sergeant Tender about this case. Is there any movement in this case at all? And they'll usually let us know in the case we just talked about. That's the Tarver case. And we had, there was one years ago, similar, same thing, using the debit card. I tell you what, the credit cards can get you.
Well, what's odd to me is she doesn't want to discuss it.
Yeah.
If I had a loved one or a parent that was okay,
Yes.
let me tell you something. You couldn't give me enough camera time.
Yeah.
I would be screaming from the highest mountain.
Yeah.
I would be holding a sign. I would be anything I could draw
Exactly.
attention to find my loved one. Okay?
Absolutely.
This is where the subconscious mind comes back to haunt you when you don't want to do these things.
Yes.
Why? Why don't you? Fighting crimes is spot on. Why don't you want to participate?
Why don't you?
Yeah.
Exactly. And, you know, the thing that gets me is, you know, and the thing that's so bad, one of the reasons they probably can't make an arrest is, and I think Sergeant Tender said this before, we don't have a body. How many times, you know, you've got to have that body. But it's imperative to a case that they know the man is probably deceased, probably, more than likely, they don't know for sure, but without that body, you know, that is it's the evidence, you know, the evidence is missing.
So it sounds like to me law enforcement is going to meet with the grand jury and pitch what they have, pitch their conclusions, and just see where the chips fall.
Yeah. Well, I wish they could find the body. I certainly do. And I still say, unless he's buried deep somewhere by whomever did it, you know, someday a hunter, how many times has a hunter, an ATV, guys riding ATVs, hunters, found bodies?
all the time.
There's advantages to those, people being in the woods like that, because there has been many a skull body found that way, I'm telling you. Really has. So this may be one of the cases that happens that way down the road, but I certainly do wish they could, if he is deceased, I certainly wish they could come up with the body. And again, it gives closure to the rest of the family, if he had any other family members that care, then certainly it would give closure to them. And that's what this is all about, folks. We say that every week. Closure for these families is so important. It's just so important. And our show that's one of the missions of our shows. Our show is just to bring closure to families, get tips from you. It is your duty to come forth. And as JP and law enforcement says all the time, if you see something, say something, please. So, thank you for watching the K-Files this week. Thank you, JP. I've enjoyed
Thank you.
having you with me again. Enjoyed having, of course, Lieutenant Sherrod. And next week, we'll have, hopefully, Sergeant Tender with us for another episode of the K-Files. Have a great day, everybody.
See you next week.
If you recently lost your job and your health coverage due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and you think you may be eligible for Medicare, you probably have more questions than answers right now. Statewide Insurers Group, All Things Medicare, can help you with that. We can provide the guidance and the answers that you need to get the benefits you may be eligible for. Don't let this time of uncertainty jeopardize your eligibility for your Medicare benefits. Remember, relationships matter. Call Statewide Insurers Group today for the answers that you need now. 316-8166.
Being prepared and trained is the best way to keep your family safe. The best way to be prepared is to learn from those who've spent a lifetime protecting us. Barnes Safety and Consulting LLC offers concealed carry classes with instructors who are law enforcement officers active and retired with more than 100 years of law enforcement experience. Monthly classes are taught year-round with private classes and special group rates available. Classes are $75 and held in the Bailey area. Call or text 1-800-653-0643. Get your concealed carry permit and avoid becoming a victim.